Hi, this is a slight introduction to the introduction. I wanted to highlight how many times I say in the video. Viewer, please consider counting how many times as a entertaining challenge. I apologize and I'm working on it. I will probably script my videos a bit more from now on. Thanks and enjoy the video. Hey y'all, so I wanted to share my thoughts on this post by um, is this the Asahi lead? I think it might be. Yeah, Hector Martin. And he talks about resigning as the Asahi project lead. Oh, so that's right here. So I listened to this through Festival text to speech. I also read it again, and I think I have a good understanding what he's talking about. Um, but yeah, I'm not that terribly versed on the intricacies of Linux kernel politicking and Asahi Linux. But enough about me. Let's talk about what he talks about. So he talks about how, he had captured this wonderful experience doing like Wii modding, Wii homebrew back in the day, and got burnt out because basically everyone was just super entitled in that community. All the people just wanted to play their pirated games, essentially. So he washed his hands of that, and he found the opportunity to uh, capture the same like flow and just feelings of amazement through getting Linux to work on the M1 when Apple released their own ARM-based silicon. And so he did that and got traction and pretty cool. But the problem started coming because he encountered the same entitledness among users there. For example, as it turns out, DisplayPort alternate mode for USB-C, that's how you can do video through USB-C port. It still does not work on your Asahi Linux with the built-in USB-C ports, apparently. And I can see why that's frustrating. Personally, I don't actually use that right now. This laptop doesn't support it, but it is a nice feature to have if your hardware supports it. Um, Personally, my problem is that Asahi, when I tried looking into it, didn't support audio, and I wasn't going to just put on an external interface just to do any sort of audio work. So I was like, okay. Um, but again, let's get back to the article. So the other thing he kind of talks about is um, he makes his point of somehow the Apple hardware is open-ish, and I kind of disagree. Um, in fact, I argue that the Wii is more open than Apple's hardware because it was just basically a G4 PowerPC processor architecture, and that's well documented as an open thing. Um, ARM isn't really the same way. It is kind of open, but it's all proprietary, and you need like IP licenses to do ARM stuff. And on top of that, ARM is like every ARM device is different and unique. And like those PowerPC devices are in the same way. Groups are all like embedded devices, like consoles. They're not just general purpose computers. Talk about the Wii and the GameCube and such. Um, but I question how open really the Apple platform is because um, you have to face the reality that like if Apple pushes an update and they update firmware and break stuff, there's no guarantee that it's not going to happen. They aren't supporting you. They aren't supporting third-party operating systems on their hardware. It's just lovely circumstance that allows us to achieve this wonderful feat of getting Asahi Linux to work in the first place. But again, I digress. All I'm saying is that Asahi Linux is on a proprietary platform. It's on an open platform. So that's one talking point that he says that I disagree with strongly because I've seen open platforms and the M1 is not that. Apple Silicon is not open. It is not that. Um, but the point is he's able to get to work, so he's calling it open. I think that's what he means. So Moving on. Uh, and also it talks about like a lot of people saying like basically throwing FUD, fear, uncertainty, distrust around the just it being like good enough to be a daily driver. And personally, I was in that bucket for a while too because frankly, I just want the thing in the computer. I used to be a lot more about tinkering and stuff, but this device is a box standard Lenovo with box standard Debian testing, like KDE. Why? Because I want to read this article instead of thinking about computering. Um, so, moving on. And he's talking about how he lost donations, and donations were decreasing because he got burnt out. He had a bunch of personal reasons. He kind of took a bit of a break in 2024. Uh, had to deal with a lot of stalkers and stuff and harassers, which is extremely unfortunate. Um, and talking about accomplishments of shipping like a Vulkan driver, there's a display port alternate mode I was talking about not working. He diatribes on how it requires massive kernel refactors to make it work robustly. And they were hoping to ship a hacky sort of partial driver early this year, like about now. And I guess it's come to a head. So where was I? Okay. Um, yeah, and he was trying to do it with the hacky approach because of avoiding yet another bike shed discussion to accomplish his goals of doing it the proper way, which requires all this effort, as I just entailed. Um, and the other thing was Rest for Linux has been kind of a mess. There has not been much support from leadership, and it's mostly just community and like small people support, like not corporations. Um, you know, so yeah, that's been very contentious. And in fact, one Rust maintainer resigned a while ago. I remember reading about that. Um, if I find the link, I'll share it, maybe, just maybe. And talks about how apparently NVIDIA is going to be using Rust for their GPU drivers. Talks about some other examples where Rust is useful. I think we don't really need to talk about the rest of Rust. Rust is designed to be type safe, I'm sorry, memory safe and type safe, C type safe, because you avoid star. Void pointers. He kind of talks about how it's just so aggravating trying to get this to work. A lot of toxicity, a lot of people just pushing back, a lot of like maintaining their own code bases, like their own copy of Mesa, which is a huge mess. I don't know if you guys realize how big the Mesa code base is. It is ginormous. Oh my gosh. Um, some things don't quite work well because of these things. Stuff like well, you can read the article, go into the details, but basically, there just used to be a hard time getting stuff to work because all of these upstreaming issues and maintaining forks and stuff and having document workarounds because they can't just get their stuff shipped and upstreamed. And yeah, just a lot of problems with people just like either shutting down whenever they're confronted with the idea that like they need to work with big people like big external contributors like Hector Martin in outside like a corporate sense of that term too. This guy's a hobbyist, and a lot of people he's worked with are corporates, are basically just corporates, corpos, and so they have a very different priority. They're working for a corporation. They have to do, they have to basically do their job, first and foremost instead of doing what's good for Linux. So a lot of misunderstandings. Hector isn't actually employed by anybody to do this. He just gets sponsorships from individuals mostly, and from one corporate sponsorship from Bunny.net, which is some sort of CDN. And he kind of talks about some of the shortcomings with being Mastodon, being outspoken, being a little bit abrasive and whatever. I mean, everyone in that community is like that. So I don't think he needs to apologize for being like that because they're all like that, if not worse. So I'm just saying. He talks about like trying to drum up support, especially without corporate sponsorship. He talks about how another example of a great kernel hacker, Kolivas, was he basically burned out because he just didn't have support, financial support too. So, and yeah, Hector Martins just felt very unsupported. He misses just having fun, free time, and honestly, he's just burnt out. Like he's probably just been bashing his head against this. And once he came back to the project after a long vacation, realized, well, this sucks. Why am I doing this? This isn't good for me. And I totally understand. I've been through this. So yeah, Hector resigned. It looks like he's pausing donations where he can and trying to charge back where he can. Not. Um, he directs donations to the Asahi Linux community, and they have a different donation funnel. The fact that Rust is being stonewalled isn't being given the support it deserves. I mean, I don't know if it deserves it or not, but from an objective perspective, I think it makes sense to make maintenance as low as possible, the maintenance effort as low as possible, especially the size of the kernel code base. There's so many lines of code. There's always random vulnerabilities. It's really no more secure than Windows, the Windows kernel in many regards these days. It's just so complicated, so many hands in the pot, and they're all doing something else for different priorities and reasons. So the interaction between these different subsystems is just as such is going to cause problems. These aren't going to work. It wasn't so long ago I had a bug in something as trivial as the dmessage buffer, which is the dev slash kmseg or mesg file. I forgot what the problem was, but basically it was stop buffering and my dmessages stopped working. That's a regression made into LTS like a year or two ago, or 3 years ago. These things happen all the time, is my point. Regressions happen all the time in Linux. Um, we're not somehow immune to the same problems other software ecosystems have when they become large and fat and bloated. And very, like the mythical mammoth, the more people throw into a project, the more it's just going to get slowed down and the more you have to like spend time cooperating and planning. Uh, and just like, it just means there's more opportunities for miscommunications and like software defects to be incurred in the life cycle of the project. So I totally understand this, but what I'm trying to get at is this is complacency of, for lack of a better term, the curmudgeons in the kernel ecosystem resisting innovation, essentially. And if they cannot innovate with something like Rust or some other sort of memory safe or significant stride in developer experience in the kernel code base, that's just, you're not going to get next generation developers. You're going to get like a couple of corporates, and that's it. People who are paid to do it. That's a tragedy because, as Hector Martin says somewhere in here, he has a quote here, right? Linux started out as a hobbyist project, but it has well and truly lost its hobbyist roots. And he's alluding to virtually everyone being a corporate sponsored person. So besides him, and he sees that as a failing of, he can't do what he wants to do because he's not paid to do it, essentially, not well enough. He isn't given the corporate support either of like having communities rally behind like this technology or that technology. Like Red Hat isn't being like, well, I'm going to go ahead and support Asahi and throw Hector a bone sort of thing, or support Rust for Linux on his behalf. We're not seeing that. Um, So I guess my point here is Rest for Linux has become a mess, and we're seeing some of the impacts here. And those impacts are that innovators in the community are starting to leave as a kind of brain drain. And maybe Linux isn't really the cutting edge anymore. It won't be the cutting edge anymore. Maybe there'll be a hard fork of Linux. Maybe there will be, um, I don't know. I kind of feel this way too. I feel like it's just really hard to get stuff done. Linux has become a victimless success in that it's very big. It's like every person's operating system now. There's a lot of stakeholders that want nothing to change because change will incur some sort of breakage somewhere down the road. It's just the nature of change in software. Some workflow is going to break, And yeah, so hope you guys nailed this. Think about, do you want to contribute to a community that's clicks and will stonewall your contributions like they stonewalled Hector Martin's? Or do you want to do something better with your energy? Think about that the next time you contribute to the next kernel.